Greetings. When most of the time, our time, with the church is spent in worship as such, it can deceive us in one important way. 10 years of faithful worship can leave us recognizing people and even learning their names. But sitting in one place and following the liturgy gives us no knowledge of the gifts, the blessings, the rage, the longings, and the personality and soul of any other man in that room. By this, wrote Jesus, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. That's from John 13:35. How can Christians be part of God's church and still be so alone? This is The Practicing Christian, and our report this week is on getting to know each other. Practicing Christians in most churches have more than 120 or so members, are vaguely aware of different men and women they see on Sundays. They figure they're probably members like themselves. In churches with more than 600 members, there are whole groups of people that we really can't identify. Researchers found out some time ago that we can carry the names of about 2,000 people in our heads. When we add a new acquaintance or friend, one of the least encountered tends to fade away. It won't get any better. If your congregation is growing, there will just be more people you don't know. After Jesus' return and the general resurrection, the whole world will be one large congregation of Jesus' people. But take heart. There are some ways that we can sort of game the system to have access to at least some knowledge of our fellow Christians that isn't upfront, but which can be achieved by some actions our churches can take. Think, for example, of the photo-illustrated church directories. I've never been a fan of these. The photos all seem to me like mindless, smiling people. Yet there may be addresses and even phone numbers and email addresses included. Or perhaps not. Too many people worry about weird people contacting them or trying to sell them something using the directory. Yet if the directory has only a name and a photo, it may still help us remember someone we've met. Many churches have some experience in improving on this. Some start with name tags on Sundays. Many people hate name tags. They think we should all know each other and that the tags indicate that we really don't do a good job of getting to know people. In a church of, let's say 584 members, with an annual turnover of perhaps 3%, it's not possible to get to know that many individuals without help, or even a decent fraction of them. You can add to the name tag a small, for example, half-inch across, flag or emblem of the state from which you come. When this happens, people start saying to one another with delight, "Stuart Meacham, is it? In the state, that's the state of Maine flag, right? I'm Jeff Corbin, I come from there too." A conversation starts up. Now, being from the same state as another member does nothing for your soul or your spiritual life. It does, however, add to the number of people you'll recognize. And it doesn't have to be about just being born there. I've lived, studied, and worked in 9 states. I can enjoy meeting people from any of these states and have something to talk about with these members. These little flags can also be put in directories. If your church doesn't do this, You could do it in your own directory. You might wear a lapel pin also from your university. Now, another simpler way that multiplies possible ways of making contacts and friends can be to allow up to 3 lines of interests, places, organizations, and so on, jobs and whatnot, under each picture in that directory. One could list, for example, under a man's picture, the name and then Michigan, M.A. Duke, Reed Barth, Jets fan, work for Intel, bow hunt, fasting, read The Economist. If you have a directory with 3 lines under each name that are given over to a bit of background, in no time at all, people will be getting to know each other and enjoying the process greatly. Kids especially enjoy some of the connections. Another practice I've seen in a few churches is to have a shelf in the kitchen that's just for mugs with your name on the side of your own mug. For your after-worship chat or other social occasions, people pull their own labeled mug off the shelf. A basin of soapy water at the end of the gathering can ensure that most of the mugs will get back to their home on the shelf cleanly. Still, another technique that's found to have a good value can be used when you have 16 or fewer people in a class or covenant group or band of brothers or other small, close meeting or discussion group. Begin with, good morning and welcome. We'd like to invite you all, newcomers or old hands, to introduce yourselves and give us a few words about why you're here today. Now, make sure everyone says, "Hi, Alan," or whatever his name is, after he states his name. These introductory processes trace back to the Wesleyan Society meetings in the 1700s, and they're used in many church groups today. This is often done in adult Sunday school classes. Some churches even do this when a group is selected, like a church board of deacons. The visitors will nevertheless be asked to introduce themselves, but only after the board members have done so. Why should we assume that at public meetings the regulars have no need to be introduced to the visitors? Why do we need to know who we all are? Here we go back to Jesus' commands to us, to love God and our neighbor and to feed his sheep. Well, can you love God if you don't know who God is? Can you love your neighbor if you're clueless about him? Can you feed Christ's sheep if you don't know what they hunger for? We all need to get to know each other. Then we can act faithfully in response to these 2 prime commands. Practicing Christians need to have some knowledge of who the boys and girls, the men and the women who are among us really are. Not just a small clique that we already know. Then we can truly be faithful agents of the love of Christ to those around us. Serve then. Be the King's strong right arm.